All right, so that solves that problem. Thanks for letting me know you can't hear. And let me just tell you that I'm really excited about tonight because we're going to be talking about passive aggressive behavior. And sometimes we throw that term around and it seems like we know a little something about it, but often we don't really understand the depths of it. So I'd like to really help with that. And I'd like to give you some incidents. I'd like to give you the opportunity to ask questions for sure. That's one of the big advantages of being here live on the live stream. And also to be able to give instances and ask me, is this passive aggressive? Because something may be going on in your life. Sometimes we're raised by passive aggressive people. Anybody raised by passive aggressive people? I sure was. And they're very indirect and very difficult. So difficult. So, no, Joanne says, no, she wasn't. All right, good for you. But if you happen to be, you will know even more how it got under your skin in the beginning, and you may not even be recognizing that it's happening now quite readily, and it becomes really important. So I'm happy to see Joanne here and Yehudit here. And I know that there are others, so please feel free to say hello in the chat so I know. And tell us where you're from. It's always nice to know. Obama girl, haven't seen you for a while. Welcome back. Always nice to know where people are from because I do know that we have quite a geographical reach, and it's nice to know about that. I know that my podcasts, and if you're looking for my podcasts, you can find them wherever you like to get your podcast. One is called Emotional Savvy. The other is called Save Your Sanity. And I know that they're reaching people now in 51 countries because my software keeps track of things like that. So we could have a very broad reach here in the live stream too, geographically. And that's always fun to know where people are calling in from. And Yehudit said, hello from Israel. It's good to be here at 4 a.m. And we're very, very pleased. I am very, very pleased that you get enough value, Yehudit, to get up at 4 a.m. and come to the live stream. That's great. So do make good use of it if you have a question, because you are making the ultimate sacrifice, giving up sleep in order to be here. And that's very important. As I said earlier, before you could hear me, I'm Dr. Rhoberta Shaler, and you find me at transformingrelationship.com. Transformingrelationship.com. So if there's something that you hear here and you want to go and check it out, just go to transformingrelationship.com, and you will learn a whole lot of things there. My blog is there. So many things for you there. My podcasts are there as well. And also some videos, all kinds of stuff. So please go there. And Yehudit said, I gained so much, so of course I'll be here. Well, that's good to hear. And I hope you gain some things tonight because this is an interesting conversation. How many of you have had a passive-aggressive person in your life or currently do? Just say yes or something in the chat so that I will know what that's about. Yes, Bomber Girl says yes. I know for me it's a big yes, yes. I had 2 passive-aggressive parents and, of course, had other people. Joanne says yes, a husband. And it's very, very, very frequent that we will run across them. Yehudit says, my husband, whom I'm divorcing now. Well, good for you. If you have any people in your life that you happen to be married to with hijackal tendencies, and it's possible to not have that aggravation in your life and it works well for you, I am all for people separating and divorcing if that's required, because they're not going to change. Dassam, hello, you made it. Glad to see you here. Yes, he says yes. So he is a passive-aggressive person or two. It's a very enthusiastic, all caps and 2 exclamation points. So I think so. So there's a lot going on. And you know, I have clients from all over the world because I work through video conferencing. So I know the things that I talk about are general throughout the world. You know, whether I have a client in Saudi Arabia or in Australia or in some part of Asia or in Europe, wherever they are, and of course all over the North America, people are the same, and they're having trouble. And you're very welcome, Dawson. So I just want to say a few things in the beginning so that we can get some clarity. I'd like to give you a definition, a very broad definition of passive-aggressive behavior. It's when people express their negative emotions subtly through their actions instead of handling them directly or speaking up. That's kind of a generalized thing, but I want to give you the very detailed definition so that you can get a little refinement on that. So I am reading from the DSM-4, which has been replaced and upgraded, but it's pretty similar. So the definition of passive aggression: a pervasive pattern of negativistic attitudes and passive resistance to demands for adequate performance, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts, perhaps as passively resisting fulfilling routine social and occupational tasks. Got one of those? Complains of being misunderstood and unappreciated by others all the time. Is sullen and argumentative. Unreasonably criticizes and scorns authority. That's a big one. That is a very passive-aggressive thing to do. They're always talking about those people upstairs or those people that are their superiors, and they're always criticizing when anybody has authority over them. They express envy and resentment towards those apparently more fortunate. And they voice exaggerated and persistent complaints of personal misfortune. Ain't it awful, and they done me wrong kind of things. And they alternate between hostile defiance and contrition. Like they're in your face and then they're apologizing for it, and in your face and then apologizing. And it is not exclusive to people who have major depressive disorders by any means. Now, most of you would know, because you're here and you've followed my work for a bit, that I've written 2 books about passive aggression. One is a downloadable book called Stop, That's Crazy Making, How to Quit Playing the Passive Aggressive Game. The other is called The Hijackal Trap, The Hidden Anger of Passive Aggression. And it's important to know, because all hijackals are passive-aggressive, but not all passive-aggressive people are hijackals. So people can simply, well, not so simply and definitely not so pleasantly, be passive-aggressive without being a hijackal. But if they have all the patterns, traits, and cycles of a hijackal, they are also going to be passive-aggressive. So it's important for us to recognize this, because a passive-aggressive person can make chaos out of thin air. I mean, they're secretly delighted with their ability to manipulate situations by appearing to do very little and appearing to not take any responsibility for it. I know in the Stop, That's Crazy Amazing book, I give an example about a thing that happened in my own life, which is I had a passive-aggressive partner, and I was on the road speaking all the time, flying in and out, speaking at conferences, and I was very, very busy. So I said, I have to come home on Saturday and fly out on Monday morning. I don't get home on Saturday till the evening. Could you please pick up my dry cleaning? I need it to take it with me on Monday. Oh, sure, no problem. Now, I knew this fellow, so I said, are you sure you'll have time? It won't be a difficulty for you because I need to depend on you. Of course you can depend on me. I will do what I say. Well, you guessed it. I came home on Saturday night, looked for my dry cleaning, asked the fatal question, where's my dry cleaning? Now, here's the passive-aggressive response. Don't you think I have more important things to do than run your errands for you? Now, he happened to be a hijackal too, but passive-aggressive. Yes, I will do it. Does not want the conflict of saying no in the moment, so says yes, hoping that I will forget, hoping to push the conflict off to another day, actually hoping it will never happen, and then when it does happen, making it my fault. Does that sound familiar to you? Do you recognize that as hallmark of passive-aggressive behavior? These people that you have in your life, do you ask them clearly, can you do this? Will you do this? Is this a problem? You're sure you can do it? You stay with them in that regard. They absolutely agree, and then they don't do it. And when you call them on it, suddenly it's your fault. You shouldn't have imposed on them. You shouldn't have asked them. You're too lazy. Or as in my case, what do you think? I don't have anything better to do than your errands. That's the way passive-aggressive behavior runs. And yes, I see a few yeses. And then you're left there. What do you do? Ah, yes, Joanne says, my hijackal would have said, oops, I forgot. Absolutely a stellar and usual passive-aggressive move. I forgot. As if it couldn't possibly be the case that I could come back and expect you to have done it, because now you have the ultimate excuse, I forgot. I went brain dead. Okay? That is really common, so I'm glad you brought that up, because that I forgot line, you know it's not true. You know it's not true. But then you also know that they weren't listening to you in the beginning when they said yes. It wasn't going in, it was going through, right? And so they really weren't listening, and they had no intention to do it anyway. So why would they take up important bandwidth in their brain by trying to remember? And this is passive-aggressive behavior. And sure, we all forget every now and again. But you know, we have this thing in our culture that I find really startling. I remember I was teaching one night, and it was a kind of a strip mall here in California, which means you come into the parking area and all the shops are around the edges. And I was going in to do the seminar in the space in there, and this very loud, boisterous woman in the class, as I got out of my car, she yelled to me and she said, I meant to come last week. And I thought for a minute, and then I said, no, you didn't. And I'm walking towards her, and she says, yes, I did. Yes, I did. I meant to come last week. I said, no, you didn't. So by that time, I was really close to her, and she said, how can you tell me that I didn't mean to come? I said, because you didn't come. She said, but I meant to. I said, meaning to is meaningless. Meaning to doesn't mean anything. But we have allowed this to be a social convention that we can say, oh, I meant to do that. And then somehow that gets us off the hook. Now, yeah, occasionally we all forget something. But when you come up with that, I meant to, and you think that because you didn't organize it, because you didn't remember any of that I meant to is going to get you off the hook, you're only fooling yourself. And that's important to notice. You don't want to be fooling yourself. You want to be honest with yourself. So you don't want to be passive-aggressive either. And another hallmark that goes along with I forgot, you know this one, procrastination. Passive-aggressive people procrastinate. Oh, I'm going to. Well, I planned to, but it didn't work out. I'll get around to it. Don't get on my case. I promise to do it. What day will you do it? I'll do it on Sunday. Can I count on it on Sunday? Yes. On Monday I say, did you do it? No, I didn't do it, but I will get around to it. And around it goes again. And this incredible procrastination. So they're obstructive, and yet they're experts at procrastination. And then Joanne says, yes, procrastination and always show up late. Well, that's another whole behavior of showing up late. Because showing up late as a regular thing means I have only respect for myself and no respect for you. And yes, I know there are some people who have a very casual relationship with time, and others who have a formal relationship with time, and those in between. And yes, there are people who are always late. However, you have to have boundaries with those people. You know, I have a rule after I've met with somebody once and I've kind of gotten to know them. And the next time I meet with them, I just tell them about my boundary. Like, you know, I know you're very busy and I know I'm very busy. So I have a rule, and I will wait for 15 minutes because of traffic in San Diego County. But after 15 minutes, I will leave. unless I've heard from you. And I just put it out there. And yes, people have not called me, and after 20 minutes I'm gone, and they're, well, how dare you? My boundary, I told you I would do that. All right, Leni, hello. Glad you're here. I'm glad you're here too. You haven't been able to check in the last few Mondays. Well, we're here now, and hopefully we will continue to be. All technology glitches are fixed, so I'm glad that you're here. So this showing up late business, if you don't want people to be late around you all the time, you simply have to pleasantly, and speaking only about yourself, say, I have this boundary. I like to be respectful of time, and I like my time respected. So I'll happily wait for 15 minutes because I know about traffic. And if I haven't heard from you, I'll be on my way. Just want you to know. And then follow through, because you're 100% responsible for teaching people how to treat you. And if you have a boundary and you don't act on that boundary, you're just telling them that the boundary doesn't matter. You get that? So you have to do it. And many times that's hard. You don't want to actually walk out of the restaurant. You walk out, checking around. Are they about to screech into the parking lot? Immaterial. Act on your boundaries. I know it's easy to say, but you need to act on those boundaries. And passive-aggressive people will go to great lengths to avoid recognizing their own weaknesses, but they love to blame others for their failures. And that's part of the passive-aggressive personality too. And it is entirely crazy-making. So it's important for us to understand. Now, let me just invite you again that at any time you have a question or a comment or whatever, put it in the mix here into the chat so that I can be sure and address what it is that's on your mind. Because I can stop and start easily, as you probably all know if you've been watching me for a while. So it's important for us to recognize that when we get into a passive-aggressive relationship, that if we're in one that is perhaps a parent or a partner or an ex or somebody at work that you have to work with all the time, you need some insights. You need to see the passive-aggressive behavior. It is never a good idea to tell somebody, that's passive-aggressive. No, that's not going to fly any better than to tell someone they're a hijackal. Just don't do it, okay? Because that's not going to work. All that does is bring up all the defenses and all the excuses and all the reasons why you're wrong and awful and horrible and unfriendly. And there's no point getting into that because it's all going to come right back at you double. So you never go around and say to somebody, I find your behavior passive-aggressive, or I think you're a hijackal. But you need to take in the fact that this is passive-aggressive behavior. It's not okay with you. So that means that it brings up your boundaries. And that's a good thing, because anything that allows you to become more clear and more direct about your boundaries is a good practice for you to be having. So there are emotional danger flags around people who are passive-aggressive, and we have to be able to see them, and we have to be able to understand what's going on and change our behavior. Now, if you're going to stay in relationship with this person, it's not a good idea to keep having the same interaction. As Einstein said, continuing to do the same thing and expecting a different result is insanity. Well, if you have a person on whom you cannot depend, don't keep depending on them and hoping by making them wrong repeatedly that they will change their behavior. When you're dealing with a passive-aggressive person or a hijackal, their behavior is power over you. That's all they want. They want to see you unhappy. They want to see you struggle. They want to see you upset. It gives them a sense that they have power over you. So if you allow them to see that it gives you power over you, then you're playing right into their hands. And you don't want to be doing that. And I don't mean to make it a game, but remember the name of that book that I wrote is How to Quit Playing the Passive-Aggressive Game. So you don't want to keep playing their game, which is they are unreliable and you blow up and they tell you it's your fault and now they're in charge of the game. pretty much you want to take your toys and go home. So you go, oh, I've got your number. I understand. So I don't ask you to do things anymore. I don't rely on that person. I'm not saying you say that to them, but you make that decision that you are no longer going to rely on them. You know who they are. You know how they are. And you are no longer going to ask them for things you know they're going to withhold from you. In that way, then, they are not getting the opportunity to use and wield that power over you. Does that make sense? So it's not that you are giving up on them. It's that you are wisely seeing the behavior for what it is and saying, I'm not going to play. I refuse to play. I see it and I'm not going to do it. So Joanne says, yeah, so true. They're unreliable. Yehuda said, you're absolutely right. We are in charge of our own boundaries. Together with that, when it's actually happening, is like a wall. Nothing that can be done to stop it. Right. So why engage? You know that's going to happen. And you have to handle your own emotions. I mean, in the face of it, you may be beating yourself up, saying, why did I even ask? I know better. Well, slowly, I hope that by having that happen, you will stop engaging in that interaction with them. But if you find that your emotions flare quickly, remove yourself from the room at that moment. Do not play into their hands. Because they're getting away with what they want. They don't want to do anything. And when you point it out to them, then they'll just make you wrong. So you don't want to escalate the conversation. It doesn't make any sense. You see how clearly that's not going to work. And I'm sure that some of you have stories about how that didn't work. The behaviors don't change. You change, right? The only person you can change is yourself. And so, first of all, understanding the way that these behavior patterns play out is important. Then deciding how to order yourself in the face of these disorders is important for you. This is your well-being that you're in charge of, not changing them, in charge of you. And you want to be that powerful person that you can be, that is not power over anybody, but is empowered to live fully yourself. Yehuda said, he does it, he can't stop it, and then he follows me into the other room. Sure, because he's not done with you yet. He wants to get another rise out of you. He wants to annoy you. He wants to have some power over you. And so he follows you around. How old is that behavior? 6, 7? Maybe a emerging teenager? Well, I'm just going to follow you, and it's going to really bug you. Immature behavior. Passive-aggressive behavior is immature behavior. Hijackal behavior is extremely immature behavior. A hijackal and a temper tantrum very, very definitely resembles a 3-year-old who can't have the toy they want. It's the way of their failings. And so there's no point you getting your knickers in a twist and trying to confront them or explain their behavior to them. It will always land badly and back on you. So it's important to get yourself in order. Oh, I am not going to throw them the ball, and then they won't throw it in my face. And sometimes that takes a bit of doing because you really want something to work. So you think if I talk about it a whole lot, they will see the error of their ways and they will change. And all of a sudden our relationship will be magical. Passive-aggressive people and hijackals don't change. Yeah, for a hot minute they will. I've had people in my private practice who come and they have a hijackal partner, and the hijackal partner comes, and the hijackal partner will cry and say, I know I rage, I know I'm difficult, I know I'm accusatory, I know I shouldn't call names, and I'm not going to do it again. And, in a hot minute they're doing it again, but we had this behavior that looked like contrition. It wasn't. It was an attempt to get me and their partner to believe that they were changing. but they don't change. They change for that hot minute to get what they want and feel that they have had power over and pulled the wool over our eyes. No, it doesn't happen. And the same thing happens with people who are passive aggressive. It is their way of exerting control, knowing that they don't have the ability or willingness to be assertive. Passive aggressive people are unwilling to be assertive, so they do it in a sneaky, indirect way with their behavior. Now, you've heard me say so many times, if you've been listening to my podcast or coming to the live stream, that you have the absolute right, and we talked about that last week. If you didn't listen to the one on your absolute rights last week, for sure listen to that. But you have the absolute right to take up space and draw breath in this world. And with that right, you have the right to say what you think, feel, need, or want, as long as you do not mention any human by name or pronoun, any other human. That's my definition of assertiveness. You have the right to take up space and draw breath, and then you have the right to say what you think, feel, need, and want, as long as you do not mention any other human by name or pronoun. Now, a passive-aggressive person or a hijackal does not want you to have that right. And they will jump in and make you wrong. But it's really important for you to know that you have that right because you breathe. And hijackals will slowly squish you, squish you, squish you, squish you, squish you, until, you're just flat as a pancake and behaving like a doormat sometimes, or twisted badly into some kind of pretzel shape. And then they're mildly happy. Never completely happy, because then you're no fun. Most animals, after they kill you, are not interested much in playing with the carcass. They just move on. But it's important in these conversations that you have, and that's an unfinished metaphor, I realize, but I'll go back to it. But it's important for us to realize that we just need to understand what's going on and make changes ourselves. Make changes that allow us to say, oh, I see this, I recognize the behaviors and all, and I don't need to respond in a way. I don't need to jump into the blaming or the shaming or the gaming. I don't need to become available for manipulation. I can simply say, okay, I see that. That's passive-aggressive behavior. It's a subtle, sneaky, underhanded way of indirectly and subtly showing me that you don't want to do what I'm asking you to do. And then because you do not have healthy things and healthy ways of being in the world, we will not have an equal, reciprocal, mutual conversation that will help us make new agreements and create a healthier relationship, right? That potential is not there. I know it's sad, but if you're with a passive-aggressive person, you can have a great relationship, but they're going to have this annoying behavior. But if they have it too often, you're not going to have a great relationship. It's not possible to have a great relationship. If you're with a hijackal, that behavior is not going to change. Now, hijackals go from mildly hijackal to extremely hijackal, right? Like way over there into what we call the dark triad. In psychological terms, an extreme hijackal is in the dark triad. That's where they are narcissistic, Machiavellian, and psychopathic. Dark stuff, really awful, ugly stuff. But some of them have just veered somewhat off healthy narcissism. Healthy narcissism is to have a healthy opinion of what you're capable of and to feel confident enough to go out and try it, but not to feel you have to be superior to any other humans. You just have the strength of character to go and take a risk. That's okay. But when we start to veer over and it becomes power over other humans, we're in the wrong territory. And when that happens, so let me just stop talking for a moment and see if there's any questions. What's going on in your mind? Who are you relating to? Have you had a situation where this has happened? Can you tell us what you did, what worked, or what didn't work? Maybe you have a question about somebody in your life right now that you'd like to know what might be a good thing to do or say. And I know that's a lot of typing, but it helps other people to think about situations in their life. When you ask a question, it usually means that there is that same question in the room for other people. So the answer applies to everybody else. So Joanne says, thanks for going first, Joanne. Says, how does passive-aggressive behavior of a parent affect children? Oh, what a good question. Children seldom fail to do what we do, even though they'll fail to do what we say. That's a big truth that we all have to recognize. Our children may fail to do what we ask them to do, but they'll seldom fail to do what we do. So when children are raised with one parent being passive-aggressive, they will either mimic the behavior or hate the behavior. And they'll feel very pulled apart by what to do. They're infuriated by it, but if it works, they may pick it up as a strategy. So hijackal behavior, passive-aggressive behavior, I just put out a graphic on Facebook the other day, and if you're not on my Facebook page, it's Relationship Help Doctor. So just go to Facebook/Relationship Help Doctor. And on that page, I put out one of a young boy, and he had a mask over his face, and it said, hijackal behavior. Watch it, don't catch it. It's highly contagious. And so you get the idea of, okay, well, I'll do to them what they do to me, and maybe then they'll understand how it feels. You ever had that thought? It never works. So if there's one parent who is passive-aggressive or hijackal by nature, and the other parent starts to mimic that behavior to show them what they feel, we've got a double whammy for the children. But children are going to mimic the parents, and they're going to side with the parent at some time, whether that's the person with the healthier behaviors or the lesser behaviors. And they're going to confuse children. So if you have a specific incident in mind, Joanne, please feel free to put it in. Or if you have another question about my answer, I'm happy to respond more fully to that. Anybody else? Is this making sense to you? Is it waking up some awareness in you? Is it validating what you've already experienced and now you have a strong understanding that it truly is passive-aggressive behavior? Leni said, I've heard that called catching expression, narcissistic fleas. Can this be applied to a hijackal? Oh, absolutely. Hijackal is my trademark term. And the reason that I trademarked that term is because I wasn't happy with people going to the internet and then putting in a description of a behavior and then thinking that the internet is a psychological professional. It's not. It's an index. So you put in this behavior and it comes back and it says, oh, that's narcissistic, or it's antisocial, or it's histrionic, or it's psychopathic. And that's not helpful. What's helpful is we need a term that just talks about the behaviors, the patterns, the traits, the cycles, the behaviors, so that we can learn how to deal with them rather than slap a psychological label on them. So yes, hijackals is my term for all of those patterns, traits, and cycles. And hijackals have fleas. And let me explain what Leni's talking about. We use the term narcissistic fleas because when you've been around a narcissist for quite a while, you may have that behavior where you start behaving like them to show them or to meet them where they live, and you're going to have this kind of behavior. And so you've got the fleas. So that's why I always say, watch, don't catch, right? Watch the behavior, identify it. That's hijackal behavior, that's passive aggressive behavior, but don't catch it. Don't start suffering from it yourself, because then you're incapacitated. That's not going to work very well, is it? That is definitely not going to help. So, Leni, I hope that explains that right on, that we do have that way of thinking that we will show them and we will be like them and they'll get it, and they won't. And if that's not who you are, then don't behave like that. Sometimes the question comes up in groups and things, and I have a membership site, and if you want to get close to me and you want to be safely off Facebook and all social media, I have a membership site that works like Facebook. All the discussions are just like Facebook. And you can belong. It's only $5 a month for the first month at any level. And you just go to optimizecircles.com, optimizecircles.com. And in there, somebody asked a question about how do I determine what my behavior should be? And a woman asked a question about, my mother was a flaming hijackal. I've had her out of my life for a long time, but she's really, really ill, and everybody's prevailing upon me to go and take care of her. And what do you think I should do? And my question is always this, no matter what the situation is that someone is asking me about, who are you? It's not who is she. Who are you? What is it required for you to live by your values, your vision for your life, and your beliefs that will allow you to live with yourself without regret and behave from there? If you become like somebody that you don't like or you don't approve of or is infuriating to you, have you in any way moved yourself forward? I don't think so. So it's very important to know who you are. When I work with my individual clients and they want their life to change, or they want to heal, they want to transform after abuse, one of the basic things that we have to do after exposing the story of the life is to say, who are you now and how do we find that out? And I have exercises and things that I invite people to do between sessions so they can find out, who am I in this moment? Who do I want to be in this moment? How do I want to be? How do I become that? And how do I heal from what's happened in the past? And that's when we start to free ourselves. That's when we can release that Santa bag that we've been hauling through life of all the ain't it awfuls and he or she done me wrongs and what happened to me and the neglect and the pain and all of that, which is very, very real. But we don't need to carry it anymore, but you do need help to let it go wisely. Because just to say, well, I'll never think about it again is just denial. Everything in that bag needs to be taken out and had a look at to see who put it here. Is there any good in it? And if not, I need to discard it. And what would I like to have in its place? Okay, Yehuda said, is there a spark I can catch somehow that'll just give me the understanding that he's a hijackal and help stop those thoughts of maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe I took this all out of proportion? Oh, that's a very good question, and I'm asked it so frequently, because what the hijackal has done is caused you to second guess yourself on every level, right? Like, maybe it's me, maybe he's right or she's right in the opposite case. Maybe I am crazy, maybe I'm the hijackal, maybe I'm unreasonable, maybe I've blown things out of proportion. And so you wisely look and self-reflect, and you may need some help with that. Often I help my clients with that. But when we come down to it and we find out, okay, clean and clear, no, that's not my behavior, then you start to look at the reality of the situation you're in, and then you can see it with clearer eyes. And so the spark that you can catch is A, read everything that I've written. Understand, listen to what I've said, listen to the podcast, Save Your Sanity. That's a solo cast. It's just me talking about various aspects of hijackals. And really get it. Yes, that's the person I'm with. I wish it weren't true, but it is. That's the person I'm with. That's how they behave. Oh, that's how I respond to them. Yes, it doesn't change. Yes, every moment I hold on to the hope that that person I fell in love with is going to return. If only I make myself into a pretzel or a doormat, that person I fell in love with will return. Well, big news here, everybody. That person you fell in love with, if they're a hijackal, that person doesn't exist. That was an act. That's what we call love bombing. That was an act to, as quickly as possible, get you to do what they wanted you to do so they could begin to have control over you. And being hooked on the hope that that person is going to come back if you morph yourself into some unknown shape is not going to happen. That person doesn't exist. They're not coming back. And you, first of all, that spark that you're looking for, Yehudit, come to that place where you realize that that person I fell in love with doesn't exist. That was a story. That was a show. That was the chameleon putting on their mating ritual. And I loved it. And it was real. And it was wonderful. And it was just what you wanted. And then they went on and began to let their cover fall off, bits and pieces, or maybe all at once. I've had people who it fell apart in a wedding night. And then you keep thinking, oh, if only I'm better, then that person will come back. So really get clear that person doesn't exist, so they're not coming back. And maybe that spark will help you. And is he a person I can work with, you ask? Well, I don't know. I mean, if the things that I'm talking about are resonating with you, do you want to live with a person like that? Do you want to live with someone whose entire reason for getting up in the morning is to have control over you, even if that means that it is simply ignoring you or not caring about what you need or want or not remembering a thing that you say or ask? I mean, I don't think that's a very satisfying way to live, but some people have reasons for continuing to live like that. One of the things that many people do is they say, well, I want to find that out for sure. And they come and work with me and they get their partner to agree to do that and say, let's see if we can make this work. And then it becomes clear during the time together that whether it is possible or it's not possible, whether that person is honestly wanting to make it work or they're just saying that because it sounds better. So the answer to that is understand that if they are a hijackal and everything that I say, and it's your checklist and you're going, yes, he's like that and like that and like that and like that and like that, then know that he is a hijackal and he's not changing. You can stand on your head and spit wooden nickels for 5 years and he's not going to change. He'll throw you a bone every now and again. He'll be delightful for a hot minute when he wants something, but he's not going to change. But oh boy, does he like having you on the run, second-guessing yourself. He really likes that, and you can count on that. So that's not a good sign, is it, for the relationship turning around and working better. So good questions. Anybody else have a question or something that they want to talk about, even if it's off topic right now? We have all kinds of phrases that we use that kind of indicate passive aggression. We'll say, she drives me up the wall, or I think he's bananas. We have all these expressions that say, I don't know what to do with this behavior. It's crazy making. And if you find that this is something that you're noticing about someone in your life who's close to you, it may be time to have some distance from them. It just may be time to have some distance. And it could be something as simple as this. And, from my book, Stop That's Crazy Making, which is available on Amazon as a download, I had this example in here, how passive-aggressive behavior plays out in a primary relationship. So the example that I put in the book is from another book by Bach and Deutsch. And here's the example. Martha asks her husband, "What time will you be home for dinner tonight, dear?" And he says, "We're having our monthly sales meeting. I'll probably be later, maybe about 9 o'clock. She says, "Anything special you would like for dinner?" And he says, "Oh, just something plain. You know how touchy my digestion gets when I'm too tired or hungry." So that night, as the guy comes home, he finds Martha in her coat about to leave. And she said, "I'll be back by 11, dear. I'm going over to Alice's to watch that TV special on women in medicine. Oh, you look tired. You've had dinner, haven't you?" And it's not hard to see how upset the husband is by this greeting. As with all crazy making, he's a little stunned and bewildered by the failure of his expectation that a stomach-soothing supper would be waiting for him. So he sputters for a minute, and then he begins to get angry, but the anger is cut off. And she says to him, "Now, I'm sure you said that you were going to eat dinner downtown. Remember, you said you wanted something plain, and you said you didn't want to wait too long to eat because it was hard on your digestion." You see where this is going? And her husband said, "I said some of that, but I definitely said I was coming home for supper." And now he's hurt. And then this passive-aggressive woman says to him, "Now, dear, are you sure you said it really plainly in just so many words?" And he tries to think, and he can't quite remember because he's getting angry and going a little brain dead. And he says, "Well, really, I know I told you. What do I have to do? Write it down?" And she said, "Well, people can be unclear and people can misunderstand." And he says, "Well, clearly I remember you asked me what I wanted for dinner." And she says, "That was before you said you'd be late." And she looks at him, looks away, and sits down. Total miscommunication. Things totally falling apart. And some mutual passive aggression going on there. So, okay. Lini says, "Everything you said is 100% what I experienced. 3.5 years after the divorce and 4 years past his third disappearance, it's still hard for me to completely believe it was all an act." Oh, yes, I so understand that. But I know it was. The cognitive dissonance is real. I can't believe I fell for it. Don't beat yourself up for a moment about falling for it. You had no idea you were falling for something that was false. Okay, be very, very clear about that. Oh, here comes the sun. Be very, very clear about that. Don't spend a minute beating yourself up that you fell for it. You hoped that it was going to be a healthy relationship, and you invested in it, you engaged in it, and you engaged with it, hoping that it would become healthier. And the ingredients were not there. This is very important. If you've been in a relationship with a passive-aggressive person or with a hijackal, you didn't fall for their bad behavior. You didn't fall for it. You wanted to believe that this person was giving you the accurate truth, right? So don't spend a minute ever berating yourself or beating yourself up for, "Oh, I should have known better. How could I be so foolish?" No. You had a normal desire to have a healthy relationship, and you probably were willing to compromise. You were self-reflective. You looked at your own behavior, not theirs. And so you ended up in a relationship that was not wonderful. I've done it too. Why do I do this work? I had hijackal parents, therefore I had a hijackal husband, and I had to get a divorce and co-parent and do all that kind of thing, and I was still a hijackal magnet. And eventually I had to figure it all out. And there wasn't anybody to help way back then. So I figured it all out, and that's why I do the work that I do. And I'm not going to spend a moment beating myself up for that, because I was set up for that by my parents. And probably you were too. Even if you were just set up to, give them the benefit of the doubt. Go the extra mile. All of those things that good people do. So very important. Now, I apologize for this sun stream. I just had film put on the windows that was supposed to make that not possible. But here it is. So Joanne asked the question. I hope that helped, Leni. I hope that is useful to you. Joanne asks, how would a hijackal work around the tactic of their target person being uber preemptive? How would they counteract this tactic? Whoa, that's a very deep question. How would a hijackal work around the tactic of their target person being uber preemptive? I'm not exactly sure what you mean, but I'll give it a go. When you become wise to the behaviors of a hijackal, they become warier and wilier because they don't want to be seen. And so they begin to make you wrong more frequently, with more refinement, more difficult. Ah, yes, she's getting ahead of the game. They want to be ahead of the game. So that's the thing. They always want to have power over you, so they're always going to up their game. They're always going to double down, create a double whammy, do whatever they can. They must win. They must win. And I think everyone here has probably heard me say that if you're with a hijackal, they must win in the moment. So if they need to say black is white in the moment to win, they will. And if 3 minutes later they need to say black is red to win, they will. And when you say, but 3 minutes ago you said black is white, they say, you don't listen very well. Or why are you blaming it on me? And they distract, right? We have a lot of that in the U.S. just now. And this distraction, oh, it'll never be my fault. It will never be a hijackal's fault. So as soon as you're onto their behavior, they're all over it like a tent. And one of the things that they will do at that point is go looking for more supply, people who will tell them they're wonderful because you're not telling them they're wonderful. And then they'll say, you drove me to it, right? That happens too. Very sad. So they're very wily. Most of the people who have hijackal tendencies, pretty street smart, really understand the sales game, the con game, the way around people. Joanne says, whack-a-mole, hijackal version. Exactly. If you talk about this, and nope, they're going to pop up over here and here and here, because they need to be right, and they will find a place to confuse you and get you second guessing, and finally they hope you won't be able to keep up with them. So that is exactly what happens. So some thoughts on passive aggression. Remember, I'm always happy to hear your requests for topics for our live stream. When you go on YouTube, and I hope you have subscribed, and hit the little bell next to the subscribe button for notifications so you'll know when something new comes along. But do go into the comments of this particular video, it'll be up later tonight, and put topics in there you'd like me to talk about. That's very helpful to both of us, because I'm happy to do that, to give you what is most helpful to you. And I'm just delighted that you're here. I'm glad that we have this time. Again, I invite you to come over safely off social media and be a member at optimizedcircles.com. That way, I'm in that discussion group all the time. We have 4 different threads for different aspects of what's going on in your relationship. I share things over there that I do not share in my Facebook groups or things, because those people are people that I give way more attention to. So optimizedcircles.com. Right now it's still $5 a month at any of the 3 levels, and you can certainly try it for $5 a month. At the first level, you get the discussion group, and my 21 Steps to Empowered Emotional Savvy is a 47-day email program for $5. I mean, that's worth the $5 right there, but then you get to be part of the discussion threads. And then at the second level, you get my videos and interactions at that level. And at the third level, you get all of that, plus you get 2 Ask Me Anything group calls a month. So you can come on and talk with me directly, and we can answer things straight up. So Leni says, yes, very helpful. Thank you. It was the love bombing hook. A few times to him I said it was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde before I knew exactly what was going on. I guess intuitively I did. I think we all get it intuitively, but we don't want to believe it. It's just natural not to want to believe that there are people who behave like that and think it's okay. That's just so true. So I'd love to see you all in Optimized Circles. Certainly you know where to find me on YouTube. My podcasts, find that wherever you like to get your podcasts. Save Your Sanity is one, and Emotional Savvy is the other. Come on over to mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. That's where Save Your Sanity also lives. So there's so much over there for you, so many other great people doing podcasts, so much for you. So I'm delighted that you're here. I'm glad that you joined us. I hope you'll come again and bring your friends. Tell people if you found this valuable. Encourage them to come along. Send them a little note and tell them when the videos go up and that they might enjoy being part of this too. So make it a great week, and I'll look forward to talking with you next week. Bye-bye.